Hey, we went live on LinkedIn as well. Hi, I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. People hire me for no BS job search coaching and career advice globally. And I made that exclamation about we went live on LinkedIn because the last 2, 3 weeks, I've had to send the request to connect on LinkedIn again. So I'm happy that StreamYard got that sorted out with LinkedIn. And I'll just simply say Tuesdays at noon Eastern, I spend some time answering questions from people about job search because I believe it doesn't have to be as hard, difficult, painful, or take as long as it does. It's just the skills needed to find a job are different from those needed to do a job. And the reality is most of you are probably good at what you claim to do. However, the issue always comes down to whether or not you can deliver that on an interview, whether you can get interviews. So here I spend some time answering questions from people. And I'll just say, if you've got a question for me, put it into chat so I can answer it for you live. That's whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. On Facebook, I'm available at the Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter page on Facebook. Now, it looks interesting. Let me just see if I actually am live on LinkedIn. And the answer is yes, I am. Good. So I'll just simply say, I'm here to help. And if you want more, I want to encourage you, go to jobsearch.community. There on the homepage, I've got some free video courses, books, and guides for you. Download them for free, enjoy them, use them, please. I want to say my resume PDF there, it's basic stuff, no BS resume advice. It's simple, it's direct. It's not designed to be the most sophisticated information. It's designed to give you some basics. However, I want to encourage you, download the elevator pitch one. That video, very simple approach to elevator pitches, will help you a lot. And it's designed so that when people hear your pitch, they're not going to want to take a shower afterwards, if you know what I mean. So I'll just simply say, if you've got questions for me, put it into chat so I can answer them on the show. Also want to mention, there was a story that came out last week, at the end of the week, I think on Friday, that spoke about how just about 50%, it could have been 52% or 48%, it was in that 50% of area of people who'd gotten college degrees were working in jobs that didn't really require college degrees. And that's sad to me because there's a huge investment of time and energy that goes into getting a degree. It can be very expensive. And it's your choice as to what kind of degree you or that student in your life goes for. But it can be very expensive to wind up going for a program and not being able to deliver. Now, recently I've started working with a number of students and I've been helping them do better on interviews. I've helped a couple land jobs in recent times, but the long and the short of it is folks need help. And one of the things that troubles me about the border situation and people illegally entering the country is that they tend to be lower wage workers who wind up competing with individuals who have high school diplomas, non-graduates of high school, maybe some of the college students who are working high school jobs. So the long and the short of it is, it's a complicated time in the employment market for a number of reasons. One is most of the jobs being created in the country are going to government and government adjacent jobs like social services rather than anything else in the private sector. There's been some that's been going into IT recently, but that's after a very severe cut in jobs over the last year or so. I think the stats I saw were 105,000 IT-related jobs were cut, and maybe 5,000 entered again. So, it's a complicated economy, and I'm here to help, because no one's really talking to the typical LinkedIn user in particular, who's been, I keep seeing again, lots of open to work posts in my feed, and relatively few by comparison of people who are landing. So for me, it's very sad to see this kind of stuff, but it's the reality of what we're facing. So I want to help. At jobsearch.community, I mentioned I've got free stuff on the homepage. And if you want more from me, I've got 3 tiers of service. Number one is if you become an insider, you get access to all my video courses, books, and guides. And you can message me with your questions so you don't have to wait a week to get answers. I turn it around no later than 24 hours later. There are rare exceptions where I can't, and you'll know about that in advance. But most of the time, I'm able to turn things around way before 24 hours. Become an Insider Plus member, you get everything I've already mentioned, plus we get on at least 2 Zoom calls a month. Become an Insider Premium member, and you get everything I've mentioned up until this point, plus individual or group coaching. So again, that's jobsearch.community. Now, I've received questions in advance from people, and I want to start addressing those. And if you've got a question for me, again, put it into chat. You'll cut the line and get to the front so I can answer some of your questions. Okay? So, question number 1. What does it mean when recruiters contact people for positions they didn't apply for? Recruiters are hired by companies to fill positions. You didn't apply for the job. That's absolutely true. But what you did do is have a profile on LinkedIn or a resume in someone's database, and they thought you might have a background that could fit a role that they're trying to fill. So what it means is exactly that. They think you might have a background that could fit a need that they have, and they'd like to talk with you about your background, because not everyone's LinkedIn profile is completely accurate or up to date, or certainly that resume that's in their database is not current, and they want to have a conversation with you to see whether your background actually does fit. So what it means is they're extrapolating. They're trying to have a conversation with you to see whether or not your experience actually does fit a role. They are trying to recruit you for a position because they are recruiters. They people who by definition recruit people to fill jobs with clients of theirs. And if the client hires you and you remain in their employ for some period of time, they will be paid a substantial fee. That's what it means. Now, I've got a long question here that I received from someone, and let's see now. Okay. So this may cover my face. I apologize. Yeah, no, it doesn't. This person wrote to me that they've decided to specialize in cybersecurity after 30 years in IT. They've worked in Helpdesk, network administration of Novell and Windows NT and AD networks. This is old technology, obviously. Wi-Fi, networking with Cisco and Aruba routers, again, old stuff. Switches and access points, enterprise backups, a host of network protocols, network integration of vendor hardware, and a few massive deployments at major New York City hospitals. I want to start in the PCI DSS space under cybersecurity, and they're studying. Let's see if I can catch the rest of this. Not in this post. Let's see here. They want to become a well-rounded vulnerability engineer. What are my thoughts or suggestions about my direction, additional training, and positions sought for? So I'm going to start off by saying I'm not a cyber expert, although when I still did recruiting, I did do recruiting in cyber. But it's been a couple of years. Cyber is, of course, an important area. And especially as things get complicated in the world, firms are more interested in people with cyber experience. Now, I'll simply say what you want to be doing is talking to people who work in this field, not to a coach, not to a job search coach about what your choice is. You want to talk with people who know this field, reach out to them, and I want to say, not to the people at the school that's selling you on joining. You want to speak to people who are actually in the field, ideally with backgrounds similar to yours, about what it took to make the transition, and see what they think, what the rough edges were for them, what it took for them to do it, what schools they attended, the strength of the program, the strength of the after program job placement stuff that took place. Because I'm assuming that's another part of this. You want to land in a job afterwards so that you can take this training that you've received and apply it in a job. So there's lots of things you probably want to know. I don't know of anything intrinsically wrong with going into cyber, but they will. They will also have some ideas of things you should be asking the schools in making this transition to cyber. Because I get the idea from what you described to me, that experience that you described seems like older technology and older related work. And thus, what you may be trying to do is get into the cyber equivalent of what you did before on the help desk. That's viable, but you also want to know, in joining, what salary can I expect? Do you know the answer to that? What will firms look for from me as a new person? What kind of hours can I expect? Think of it as informational interviews, which, by the way, I happen to have a great course on informational interviews at jobsearch.community. It's behind the paywall, so you have to join at some tier in order to find out more. But I'll just simply say, talk to people in the field to find out what you know and don't know about making the transition into cybersecurity. This way, you are less likely to make a mistake on a program. Your expectations are reasonable because nothing is going to be sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops about a career transition. That's just the fact of it. You're not looking for a $30,000 a year job, I'm assuming. Money's a factor here. As a person with 30 years of experience, right, you're not a $30,000 a year person anymore. So I want to make sure you're not surprised about the expectations for you. And the only way to minimize the risk of not being surprised is by talking to people who've actually made the transition or who are doing the work that you want to be doing at this next organization. Okay? I hope you found that helpful. Long question. I gave you a pretty lengthy answer. Okay? Let's see now. Next question. Oh, yes, I love this. I had a Zoom interview with a recruiting agency, and I showed up a week early and emailed them politely telling them I'm waiting. Then I realized I'm a week early and apologized. Is this going to hurt my chances? They probably had a good laugh about this because, I'll just simply say, I had people show up in my office when I did recruiting a week early, or at a client's office a day early. And my favorite story about this was a woman from a consulting firm who called me up and said, your candidate showed up a day early. Really? I'd sent them a message, because this was in days pre-email. I gave them a message very clearly by voice that let them know the date and time of the appointment. And the HR person laughed, and I said, and When I asked them, do you know when your appointment is? They flicked their tie up and said yellow. Because English was a third language for them, their comprehension skills weren't good, and thus they made a mistake in arriving a day early. I'll just simply say they'll probably, you make apologies when you get on the Zoom call next. They'll probably laugh it off with you. They probably won't hurt your chances. And you'll just be apologetic and move on from there. And if it does hurt your chances, they're probably jerks, or they didn't really have something for you. They were just, trying to get to know you for something that they had coming up. Because any recruiter who's worth anything will submit a candidate who made a mistake and apologized for it, as long as they weren't jerks about it. And they do it because they want to earn a fee, right? Recruiters are paid to fill positions so that they are paid. And thus, your eagerness, your mistake, it's not terrible. They will probably laugh about it with you and it'll move on, okay? And I'll just remind you, let me just see now, there it goes. If you've got a question for me about job search, put it into chat so I can answer it live, okay? And I've received other questions from people. Now, here was a fun one. And let's see. My job hired me before receiving my background check. I worked for 3 weeks before my background check was received. Once the employer received my background check, it was not to their satisfaction and they fired me. Is this legal? The answer is yes. Now, background check can mean a couple of different things. It could mean, legal questions, whether or not you lied on the application about whether or not you had the legal right to work in the United States, whether you had been convicted of a crime, that level of background check. It could also mean a reference check. We spoke to your former manager and we discovered that you were incompetent or you were a drug user. I'm using extreme examples. It could also mean you lied on your application about dates and wages. That one is clearly legal for them to fire you, because on the application it will also say something to the effect of that they have the right to do a background check. And in addition, if they find a discrepancy, it's grounds for termination. That's on this third option. If they found a bad reference from your former manager, you're entitled to find out from them what the basis was for the background check coming back badly. You're also entitled to rebut it, which may not save your job. Frankly, it won't here because they've already let you go. But you'll find out what it was that caused them to terminate you, what the reason was on the background check that was problematic for them. Now, if it was a bad reference, I would contact an attorney and I would simply say, I left my former employer voluntarily. I was not terminated. And this person gave me a bad reference that resulted in my termination. I have this note from the corporation to that effect. I want to challenge this firm about this bad reference and, frankly, if necessary, sue them because they've damaged me. Now, you want to find an attorney who would take this on contingency, obviously, because the expenses can wind up being quite substantial. Attorneys don't work for free because you're a nice person. So You can also contact corporate HR at the firm and simply say, so and so, who was my manager, gave a bad reference to me that resulted in my termination. I was not terminated by your firm. I left voluntarily for a better opportunity, and I've lost my job. I want to be clear. I'm about to sue, but I also want to make sure that this never happens to me again because this person was vindictive. Now, I'm going to have an attorney contact your counsel, but I also want to be clear that this can't happen again because it's going to become extremely expensive for your organization. Shut this person up. Direct them to corporate HR, where you may give a basic name, rank, and serial number reference, or to say there's nothing indicated in his record to indicate that there was a problem with their employment. Keep it simple. Get out of this thing, but you've got to threaten them. But your question was, is it legal? The probability is, yes, it was legal. However, if you left of your own volition, and this was a circumstance where someone did you dirty, well, you've got a lawsuit available to you. And the question is whether or not you want to sue the firm and shut them up, talk to an attorney so that you know what the costs are and what would come to you. Okay? Here's more. Oh, yes. Do employers typically read cover letters attached to resumes by email? If not, what do they typically look at instead? The issue here is about the attachment. If you attach a cover letter to an email, and I'll give you an example from what I used to look at, resume.doc, cover letter.doc. Which one do you think I would open first? The resume. However, there was a little thing I noticed. My behavior was such that if it was in the body of the email, I'd skim through the cover letter to see if there was anything there that might pique my interest in wanting to talk to a person. And one of the simplest things to do, and I've discussed this previously, is to list the skills and requirements and functionality of the position in the email. In the body of the email, flush left, flush right to indicate how long and how recently I've performed that functionality, used that particular skill, et cetera, et cetera. And that would get my attention because they were basically telling me how their background fit the job. Then I, of course, would open the resume file and look for substantiation in the resume. Then I might go to their LinkedIn profile and want to see it there, but I digress. I would not read the resume or the cover letter if it was a separate attachment. No time. However, it was there in front of me, I would. And that worked for me quite well. So that's simply, it's just human nature. Why would I want to read the cover letter as a separate attachment, pop something else open versus it's right in front of me? There's no effort. It catches my attention because it talks to me about what in your background fits the role. Again, a reminder, put your questions about job search into chat so I can answer it live. Also, if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, send me a connection request at linkedin.com/IN/the big game hunter. Mention that you saw this at at Career Coach Office Hours. I just like knowing I'm helping some folks, and I'd love to help you as well. Okay. We've got more questions. Okay. Is it okay to email a prospective supervisor who happened to be part of the interview panel to find out how I did at the interview? Yes, but not 5 minutes afterwards. Give them a little time to get back to the desk, digest their experience, and then contact them. Simply say something to the effect of, um, thanks for making time to meet with me. I appreciate what you and the panel did in taking that time. I'm just curious, did you have any thoughts about the interview and how I did? And listen, and then afterwards thank them. Again, I think that's perfectly fine to do. And from there, um, you'll learn a lot about your performance. And if there were deficiencies in your background, don't argue. Clarify certain things if it's appropriate to clarify, but don't get into arguments. Okay? Now, someone put into chat, what happens when you accept a job and leave your previous company only to go to the new company and told they're not going to fill the position and your job at the old company was already filled since you left? Francisco, I'll be with you in just one moment. Thank you. So just to understand, and if I'm incorrect, LinkedIn user, please tell me where I'm wrong. Okay. When you accept a job and leave your previous firm, go to the new one and are told they're not going to fill the position and your old one was already filled. So what I'm interpreting this is that they're saying you don't have the job. The offer's been rescinded. You're out of luck. Goodbye. Well, frankly, if you have an offer letter in writing, and that could be emailed to you as a PDF, mailed to you, FedEx to you, something along the lines, you have legal proof that you received an offer of employment from them and you acted based upon that. Like a previous question I received, I contact an attorney and I say to them, I left the job because I received an offer. I never received notification that the offer was rescinded and that now I'm without a job. I'm not receiving any pay from anyone. Yes, I'm going to look for a job, but I've been damaged here. Help me. And I would also tell the firm, you may think you can walk away, but my attorney's going to be in touch with you because you've damaged me. You never notified me that the offer was rescinded. I quit my job based upon the fact that you gave me a written offer, and I quit. No written offer, by the way. There's no proof that you ever received an offer. So I pray that you had a written offer letter from this firm. And thus, you start threatening them, saying, look, I'm just going to state the fact here. You're going to be hearing from an attorney about a settlement and a lawsuit. And you've damaged me. I left a job that I cannot retrieve because they've hired my replacement. And thus, I need to be compensated for the fact that I quit a job based upon this offer letter that told me I had a job offer. And lo and behold, I don't have a job. And then be quiet. Find an attorney who specializes in these matters. I'm not going to recommend anyone to you. I don't know what state you're in. I don't know attorneys in every state. Find someone who can help you. Okay? And let's see now. Francisco asked, if you anticipate that a previous employer that actually promoted during your tenure is going to give you a bad reference, is there anything you recommend to proactively do? Yes. So just to be clear, Francisco, you've in the past have received promotions, but they're going to be vindictive and give you a bad reference. And you want to know what you can proactively do. One of the simplest things is, have your, employee documents from your reviews available. You also want to say, to talk to other people who've left the firm who will substantiate that they've experienced something. Now, If the bad reference was deserved, I'm not going to suggest that you bluff here. There's a lesson learned from this experience. However, what you can do is talk to the user, talk to other people in the organization who you've worked with in the past who will say wonderful things about you. Provide them as references. You can say, my manager has left. I'm not sure where they've gone to. In that respect, you're not being truthful. You'd be absolutely right. But what you're trying to do is to get to other people who will be supportive of you, who will say gracious things about you and generous things about you and your work for that firm. Provide them with other references from previous organizations where you have good references. And lesson learned for you if it's a deserved bad reference, okay? Because it can be very painful. It can be very painful. Yes, you can get your way through this. No question about it. If you want to get me on for a consult, which I'll charge you for, and go through more details, by all means, you can schedule a 30-minute call with me that I'll charge for at thebiggameHunter.us/schedule. And we'll have a session for 30 minutes where we go through everything, okay? I'll just remind everyone about jobsearch.community, where I do my coaching through primarily these days. There's free stuff on the homepage. There's stuff about, well, if you become an insider, there's all my video courses, books, and guides available to you. There's also the ability to ask me questions through the site. $49 a month currently. Very inexpensive by compared to coaching in general. Become an Insider Plus member. You get access to everything I've mentioned up until this point. Plus, we do 2 Zoom calls a month. Become an Insider Premium member, and you get everything I've mentioned up until this point. Plus, we do individual or group coaching. I'm starting a new group in mid-March. I'd love you to be a part of it. And if for some reason I'm not satisfied with the size of the group, Don, I don't have time to go into this today, but I do have something at thebiggamehunter.us about panel interviews. You can search in the blog and get an answer there. Sorry. It's just a little late for me to answer on the show because I have an appointment right behind this. So my apologies. I'm sure you understand. And again, just go to thebiggamehunter.us and search the blog for panel interviews. You'll find something there. Again, Insider Premium membership. We do individual or group coaching. Plus, you get all the video courses, books, and guides. There's a lot there to help you. Don, by the way, if you can wait till next week, I'll make this the opening question for next week's Career Coach Office Hours. Again, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the-big-game-hunter. Mention that you saw this. I like knowing I'm helping some folks. And once we're connected, my network is going to be a lot larger than most of yours. This way, I can help you. Hope you have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great. Take care.